Hello, everybody. We're gonna start now with a little bit of an introduction to Sofia Revit User Group, what we do, and then I'll pass the word to today's today's guest to share more about the topic of today's webinar. Sofia Revit User Group was established a couple of years ago with the main goal to bring together people who are interested in BIM, Revit, and in the IX sector here in locally in Bulgaria. But recently we decided to bring international experience and knowledge to our local group. That's why we start organizing these webinars to invite guests from all around the world to share their experience. Mainly our activity is related to live meetings that we organize around 4 times during the year, and during these meetings we are discussing different topics here locally, but as I already mentioned, we try to expand our scope, and that's why we start with this new format, which is the webinar. I'll quickly share my screen to show you where you could find us. Just a second. Share my screen. Now you should be able to see my screen, hopefully. Okay, so this is our website, sofiarevit.com, where we combine together all the resources related to our group. Here we have an archive. We have an archive with all of the live meetings, and also information about our sponsors. I want to say a couple of words about them, because without them, we won't be able to do what we're doing. So kudos to all of them, and we hope that in future we're gonna gain the trust of more companies who will join them, and together with them, we'll be able to bring more value to our local group here, and not only to in fact to the local group here, but to everybody who is interested in what we do, because here on YouTube you could find our channel where we do have recordings of the live meetings, but also if you go to the playlist, you see the playlist with the webinars that we organized so far. So we keep record of all the webinars, and even international participants could check this section and learn something new and useful to them. Also, we do have this Facebook page where everybody could ask their question, raise a I don't know, topic for a discussion. And here we also share a lot of valuable information about Revit, BIM, and digitalization in general. So with this, I'm gonna stop my share screen and give the word to today's guest, who will introduce himself, and yeah. Okay, so.
All right, thank you, Petar. I'm assuming you guys can hear me. Yes. So thanks for having me. My name is Bilal. I'm a solutions architect here at Speckle. And yeah, today we're going to talk about what Speckle is, what are its capabilities, why does Speckle exist, and hopefully I'll also showcase some workflows that we can enable with Speckle. So I'm going to quickly share my screen, if that's okay, and then yes. So I will quickly switch over to here. And then, okay. So let's go. First, I'll start by introducing what Speckle is. And then I feel free to interrupt me. I guess, Petar, correct me if I'm wrong. If there are any questions, I can answer them during
Sure,
this session
yeah.
or...
Everybody who has a question is encouraged to raise a hand or somehow to interact with us, or at least write in the chat. And if on the moment, we'll answer the question afterwards.
All right. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Today, I'm going to introduce you guys to Speckle and why does Speckle exist, right? So first, let's go over the question of why does Speckle exist? What is for Speckle's reason to trade, right? So as you already know, that AEC industry is very fragmented, right? There are projects are getting more complex and complex, right? There are multiple companies involved, multiple disciplines that are using different tools from different vendors. And one problem we have is the communication and collaboration aspect of the industry is basically non-existent, right? Even the tools that are owned by the same company, a lot of times they don't really talk well to each other. So this is why actually Speckle exists. Simply put, Speckle brings to the table connectivity, collaboration, automation, and most importantly, we bring to the table control. I'll go over what each of these keywords mean, right? Let's start with connectivity. What do we mean by connectivity? First and foremost, Speckle connects to a wide variety of different sources, right? We have connectors for more than 24 applications. We have connectors for Revit, which is the widely used BIM tool. ArchiCAD, another one. Dynamo, Grasshopper, these are the visual programming environments. Rhino, SketchUp, Blender, this kind of visualization programs, but also Power BI and Excel, which are more tabular formatted, business intelligence and data tools. Also GIS tools like QGIS and ArcGIS, and we also have connections to Bentley. But how does this happen, if you ask me? This happens because of Speckle's flexible data structure, right? Our data layer is basically object-based. What does that mean is you have, granular data access to your models within the web environment or anywhere else, basically. So we are actually freeing your data from the file formats and making it accessible to everyone. So instead of, for instance, exporting files, what you export is your objects, your data. Let's say in a building, for instance, you may have some columns and beams and etc., right? You create a connection on an object basis, and we'll explain what that is in the future slides. So connectivity is multiplayer. What does that mean is, with all these different environments, we create these connections where you can see, effortlessly send data from one to the other. In this example, we see Rhino and Revit, which are two widely used applications in AEC, and we can easily transfer our design that we created in Rhino into Revit. But the difference here is, let me actually quickly replay this video so you'll see it better. So for instance, in the first action, we are sending only the mesh elements, right? And they are there. Difference of this from importing, let me quickly go back. Difference of this from importing I don't know, like a DWG file, a DWG export from Rhino is first and foremost, everything you see here are created using the Revit's API, which means they're not imports, right? They are created using the Revit. Also, when you import a file, you create a relation per file, right? if let's say that you only made a slight change in your design, let's see it in action. So you can see I increased the height of a couple towers here and this mass also. So if I were to do this via file export, I have to export everything again and then import it again. But with Speckle, we are creating a relation based on objects. So for instance, each tower here corresponds to a Revit element. So if you make changes inside Speckle, when you re-receive it again, we are updating the changed element rather than re-importing everything from scratch. That's one of the main differences. So you create this, object-based relation between different environments. But also you can convert your maybe placeholder elements from one application to real objects in another. Such as in this case, we have a bunch of points and lines in Rhino, right? If I play this, you can see they become some sort of a facade design in Revit using the adaptive components functionality, right? Like so. This connectivity we create, this workflows we enable, they're not limited to Rhino and Revit. We support, as I said, if you want to go from maybe Revit to Blender, you can do so with Speckle. The other way around, from Blender to Revit, that is also possible. From Rhino to ETABS, why not? It's possible. From ETABS to Rhino, that is also. From Civil 3D to Revit, from Revit to Grasshopper, from Revit to Power BI, so on and so forth. So we have this big connectivity ecosystem where Speckle is at the heart of it, right? And this is all possible thanks to Speckle's flexible, open source, object-based data structure, basically. Right, so we are converting these proprietary formats into a platform-neutral, object-based format. Since it is platform-neutral, what does that mean is, they're not Revit walls anymore. They are Speckle walls now. And when you receive them in Rhino, because they also store the geometrical representation of that wall, you receive the wall's geometry. Let's say you receive it in Power BI, right? You receive a Revit wall where you can also visualize its geometry, but also extract any of its parameters. We'll see all of that in action. So yeah, these are some example workflows that are enabled with Speckle, right? You can convert your, for instance, SketchUp faces into native Revit topographies, or create structural models in ETABS using Grasshopper, or even, extract your Revit data and create some Python notebooks and dashboards. Because we are freeing your data from those proprietary file formats and making it accessible, the sky is the limit. If you have the skills, you can create your own, pipeline that does what you need. So that was the connectivity aspect, right? Just to wrap up, the connectivity is where Speckle is at the center of this ecosystem of different tools, talking, exchanging data to each other. Then we also have collaboration. So since Speckle is not only a Exchange plugin, right, that runs inside these AEC tools that we use like Revit and Rhino, it's not only that, it is also a web application. So we have a viewer. You can also collaborate with other team members using Speckle's web application, right? You can add comments, you can tag people, you can add attachments, and so on and so forth. Basically, you can have conversations in 3D between nerds, hackers, and even boomers, as we call it. So let's say that you want to share your 3D design with the boss, right? With your owner. And, you don't have to have Revit installed in your device. Once you send your data to Speckle, it is really accessible. You just share a link and then he can view the project from his phone, a tablet, or a laptop. We also have built-in versioning and change tracking system. So what does that mean is, whenever you send your data to Speckle, we are keeping track of what has changed, and you can easily compare the changes between different versions, right? So for instance, in the image on the left, we can see in the first design, right, we had this more 4-story structure, but then we have 2 stories added in this building and another one added in this building, which are highlighted in green. And then we can see the modified elements highlighted in yellow, and also the removed elements highlighted in red. You can also, create overlays and model federation views within the Speckle's web application. What does that mean is, you can easily overlay your architectural model with your structural model, with the MEP model, and so on and so forth, and collaborate with other team members within the web interface. We also have built-in filtering functionality to make, finding what is needed much easier than ever before. So as I said, once your data is free, you can access it basically anywhere, right? This is one of the workflows we enabled with freeing your data from proprietary file formats. Business intelligence is possible with Speckle. So you can access your data, for instance, from Revit, right? Easily extract the relevant information and visualize it using our 3D viewer. So just to wrap up, Speckle is not limited to, is not only a plugin to AEC applications, but in itself, it is a application too. It has its own web viewer. It has its own collaboration features, commenting functionality, filtering, version tracking, so on and so forth. Let's talk a bit about automation, because nowadays everything is automated, right? We are creating our own automation pipeline, especially in AEC nowadays. Dynamo, Grasshopper, this visual programming environment is getting more, widespread than ever before. So once you free your data again and making it accessible to everyone, the coders, the developers in the industry, they can easily create their own pipelines using Speckle. And we have examples of that, such as Arup. Arup has created this carbon tool application that consumes Speckle data. So it is completely powered by Speckle. So you upload your data to this application, and then it outputs a report, extracts the relevant information from the building elements, and then creates the carbon calculation report to you, making the LCA much more accessible. Also, another startup, Real-Time LCA, they are also completely consuming Speckle data. It is based on Speckle. Again, it's the same thing. It is consuming Speckle data, extracting the relevant information, and creating a carbon report for you, where you can match those materials that are coming from, for instance, Revit, with their materials library, optimizing what materials should be used in the project for a more sustainability and to get closer to the net zero. Right? We also see software vendors creating their own Speckle connections. Why? Because, as I said, Speckle is not only from application A to application B, right? In itself, it has this ecosystem of connections between different environments. And once you plug in your own software into this ecosystem, you can benefit from it. Basically, you're not only creating a Revit exporter, you only have a Rhino, you have also SketchUp, you also have Power BI, and so on and so forth. So beyond that, we also have AI, artificial intelligence. We have seen community members utilizing Speckle to create their own AI chatbots that they can ask questions about their projects. You can see in the GIF that, he is utilizing the commenting functionality of Speckle to chat with his chatbot, AI chatbot, asking questions about the project, about the specific room, and what considerations it needs to have, and so on. So this is all thanks to possible to our open source nature and open ecosystem we created, right? As I said, once you free your data from files and making it accessible, you can create workflows like this, which would seem impossible without it. So yeah, just to wrap up, automation is, one of the key features of Speckle that is built into it. We're not only enabling automation for our customers, right? But we're also enabling other companies to create workflows, pipelines where normally would take them ages to create the infrastructure, right? Well, we also recently announced Speckle Automate, which makes this automation pipeline much more accessible. It is currently in closed beta, right? Which is not, it is not part of this presentation, but I also briefly want to mention about it. So we recently announced it. It is in closed beta. If you are interested in running automated checks on your models, let's say, for instance, quality checks, if a certain element has a certain parameter, or if it matches, let's say, I don't know, like the fire rating of the door matches with the wall, or maybe doing some clash detections on the run, or, getting site contexts, or, create your own automation. If you're interested in that, please sign up to our Automate closed beta. You can find all the details on our website, speckle.systems. Let me actually quickly put that in the chat so you can go there, see all the details, and feel free to sign up. Would love to hear what you have in mind. We recently had our, Speckle conference, where we gave a lengthy keynote and, showcased possible demos that our users can do. So yeah, feel free to watch those too if you are interested in automation. And the beautiful thing is, it's not automation only for one specific tool, since, it is consuming Speckle data coming from anywhere, or even even data you created in Python or in Excel or wherever. You can take advantage of that and create your own pipelines using Speckle Automate. So yeah. So far we have talked about the connectivity, collaboration, and automation aspects of Speckle. I'll showcase at the end what each functionality is and how they work. Lastly, control is another key feature that is in nature of Speckle. So, we have some questions that we ask to ourselves. Where is my design data? Who owns my design data? What is a quote unquote data strategy that is pretty famous nowadays for AC companies? So if your answer to all of these questions is a closed vendor, that's totally okay. But with Speckle being open source, you are in control of your own data. You have access all the time, right? And you're not limited by the integrations that vendors create. So that was it, right? That's my presentation. To learn more about Speckle and our tutorials and, the Speckle Automate that I mentioned during the presentation, you can check this website, speckle.systems. So do you guys have any questions so far?
Maybe I could start with a question. It's related to the federated models that you mentioned, that it's possible to be achieved using Speckle, and to coordinate in a way different models. How do you align the models in Speckle? I mean, if you do have a different Revit models, let's say MEP, structural, architectural, how do you align them on the web to be sure that they're sharing the same location? Are there some specifics of the way you transfer the data from Revit to Speckle to make sure that they're gonna align? Do you need to establish shared coordinates in advance? What's the workflow here?
So currently we are using the reference points information that is coming from Revit, right? So if they are sharing the same, for instance, internal origin, then they will automatically align. Because when you send your data from Revit, right, we also have our own origin definition inside the viewer. But you can change this reference point to project-based or the survey point too, which makes overlaying different models much easier, right? That may live in different coordinates, but if they share the same project base or the same survey point, then they will automatically overline. And yeah, they will be in the correct location inside our web viewer.
I see. Okay. That sounds good. Okay, and another one. Are you able to change the information once it's sent to Speckle? So the idea is to change somehow the data online. Let's say you have a Revit model, you send the data from Revit to Speckle to do some changes on the web, and then bring back to the original Revit model.
Yeah. So our object model is immutable, right? So each object gets a unique ID, etc. But to keep things short, is it possible? Yes, it is possible, but we don't provide that functionality built into Speckle. But we have some community members that created applications, like web applications for parameter updating, where basically, you're getting the Revit data and then they are changing it in a tabular view, like Excel kind of web app, where they're updating the parameter value. And then when they receive it back in Revit, it also updates. But we do not provide that functionality built into our web application, if that's the question.
Yeah.
But is it possible? Yes.
I'm asking this because sometimes we do have scenarios where this could be very, very helpful. Let's say you have a FAR consultant that should add some parameters to certain elements. Let's say he should mark some of the walls with fire rating or doors, but they are inside a Revit model, which is owned by the architect, and the fire consultant doesn't have direct access to this model. And still, he should somehow add this information or transfer the information to the architect, and it would be really helpful if the architect could upload online the data from the Revit model. Then the fire consultant could access this information, add everything needed, add all the fire ratings to the walls, to the doors, and then the architect to be able to bring back to his model the updated from the updated data from the consultant. So
Yeah.
your tool could be very helpful in such workflows.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we're aware of this, and we actually enabled a similar workflow with our Excel connector, right? Where you're exporting your Revit data and receiving it in a tabular format within Excel. And then when you update the parameter values in Excel and send it back to Speckle, it does update.
Nice.
But you don't have the viewer functionality, and then simply selecting within the viewer and updating. I guess that's what you're asking for, right?
Yeah, maybe so, because in tabular view, it won't be that clear which wall is where, because usually the exact example that I'm referring to is related to certain zones and areas and context-based decisions, which could not be tracked very well using just an Excel table, for example.
Yeah, it is possible. It's not in our short-term roadmap, but that is a functionality built into like built into Speckle's nature, basically.
Mhm.
If you can find the workarounds, you can achieve that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do you guys have any other questions? If not, I'm gonna go over a quick demo.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so let me quickly share my screen again. And actually, I will add a quick link in the chat. Let me first do that. So we provide a free server, right? Free account to our users. You can access it at speckle.xyz or app.speckle.systems. So we are in phase of migrating to a new front end, right? We are polishing the new user interface of our web application. So that's why you have these two two namespaces. But speckle.xyz and both app.speckle.systems are consuming the same data source. They just have different, front ends, different UIs. Yeah, so go to this address. You can sign up for free. It has all the functionalities of our of Speckle, basically. You can collaborate with team members. You can create projects, unlimited models, and unlimited users. So let me quickly share my screen again. But since I guess I am, it is a bit slow. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes?
Yes, you can. Perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me quickly open app.speckle.systems. This is what I'm going to use just because this is the feature of our front end, right? And because I guess I'm sharing my screen, it is taking way too long. So yeah, so Speckle organizes projects in 3 levels, right? At the top, we have project, which corresponds to a construction project, right? So I'll create a new project and I'll name this as SRUG Sofia Revit User Group demo. And then I'll make this link shareable so you can also access it. And let's give it a quick description. This is a demo project I created for Sofia Revit User Group. And let's click on create. So we have the highest level container created. Right, so if I were to get into this and copy its link, and let me quickly paste this in the chat. If you want, you can also access the project and everything that I'm going to upload into here, right? So inside a project, you can have models. So I'll create a new model, for instance, for the data that I'm going to send from, let's say, Revit, right? But let's say that within Revit, I will have multiple models, right? So I will have some sort of like a nesting structure. You can also achieve that by simply adding slashes. So we also have a little tip here that says use forward slashes in the model name to nest it below other models. So for instance, I can say Revit forward slash and then advanced architectural project. In this case, I'm going to use the, Revit sample project. So we can see this is inside Revit and advanced architectural project, right? Currently, I only have a single model in my project. And if I try to get into it, as you can see, it is empty because it doesn't have any data in it. So when it comes to sending data, there are multiple ways, right? First, you can upload a file, but this file upload service is limited to certain file formats. Because Revit is because Speckle is open source, we can only accept open file formats, right? Like IFC, OBJ, STL. If you want to upload your Revit data, for instance, you need to send it using the Revit plugin, Revit connector. So I'll quickly head over to Revit, and this is the project. Let me quickly get you guys into this site maybe. And then, this is a famous sample project. Okay, it's gone. So you can access the Speckle tab from here, and if you click on the Revit connector, it will open this screen. I'm going to quickly refresh it. So we'll be able to see the project that I just created, which is right here. SRUG demo project, right? I'm going to select this, and then it asks me to select the branch, the model that I created, right? I will simply click on this drop-down menu. Oops, let me quickly get back. And then select the Revit Advanced Architectural Project. So there are multiple ways we can send data. We can send everything, which sends all the materials, all the views, levels, family types, and so on. All the 3D elements and non-3D elements, project information, so on. But if you're interested in sending only a specific category or specific filter you have in your mind, you can do so. First, you can select elements and then send those, right? I can simply select this wall, set current selection. So one wall is selected. And if I click on send, what will happen is it will get converted into a Speckle wall and then get uploaded. So if I were to go back to the web application now, as you can see, that blank canvas is gone. If I were to click on this, hopefully it will open. I'm assuming it's getting slower because I'm screen sharing. So yeah, here we go. This is the same Revit wall that we sent from Revit, right? So let's quickly go over the functionalities of the viewer. What is happening? Yeah. So first and foremost, right, we can see the models that we have, and I'll show you how to overlay different models in the future. But we also have the Scene Explorer, which shows how the model is structured, right? So we can see there are project informations that's being sent, such as this project is located in Manchester, its longitude and latitude, client name, so on and so forth. But we also have all the walls that are being sent. And if I were to select this wall element, I can see its parameters also stored here. So we have our own flexible data structure, right? It's not like IFC where you have a concrete data structure and the modeling application try to fit into that format. It's the other way around. We have a flexible data structure and we try to convert it using our plugins from one application to another. So we can see, for instance, the family information, which is basic wall, its height, whether it's category, and also it is area, and all the other parameters, such as it is width, maybe it is, IFC grid, it's some other parameters, and so on and so forth. So all the Revit parameters are stored here. It's level information. So its base level is 0.1 entry level, and the top level is the roof level, right? So, all the elements are here. Let me quickly go back. And if I wanted to, I can also filter a category of elements. So I can say, let's send only the walls, right? I'll select the walls, click on send. Now our plugin will only send the wall elements from Revit and the hosted elements on those walls, I'm assuming. So let's quickly wait for the connector to do its job. And what it does is basically it converts these walls from Revit wall to a Speckle wall, which is platform neutral and open. That's what it takes, and also uploads them to our server. By the way, feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. Go on, Peter.
Yeah, quick question while we're waiting. You said that once we send the information to Speckle, it grabs all the parameters of the element. What about any shared parameters or project parameters that we've added additionally to the
Same.
original ones? So they are
Yes.
transferred as well.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Shared parameters that, created by the user, as well as project parameter, any type of parameter is transferred and preserved within the Speckle. That's actually one of the, powerful features, because you may need those parameters in other environments, like maybe in Power BI, you're going to extract some information you added to your data. So let's quickly go back and simply update. And I'm assuming because I'm screen sharing, my internet is a bit slow, because normally it doesn't take this long, FYI. So yeah, as you can see, every time I click on send, I am creating a new version within the model, right? So you can think of it as maybe file uploads that you do to services like BIM 360. Whenever you upload a new file with the same name, it overrides, and it also keeps history of the previous files. This is same, but Speckle is not file-based. That's the main difference. So we can see all the walls that are being sent from Revit now, right? And we can also see the history of our project. Previously, we only had single wall. Now we have the latest version. And if you wanted to, we can also compare it with the previous version, right? We can see, hopefully, the newly added elements and unchanged elements. So this wall was previously sent, if you remember, and the rest is added, which are highlighted in green. We can also quickly go between the new version and the old version too. You can also turn it off and on, the coloring functionality, and so on. So this is the, version tracking functionality built into Speckle. Another beautiful feature is the measuring tool, right? So we also have measurements built into our viewer. So what happened there? I think I made a mistake. Yeah, right. So yeah, I was saying the measurement tool. We also have the measuring tool that is built into Speckle. I think I have a shortcut that goes back to a previous page when I hold right click or something. Sorry for that. Yeah, which is right here. You can also access it using the shortcut Alt-D. I'm quickly gonna zoom into this place, right? And then get into the measure modes. And, I can measure between this wall. I'm going to do that. So I can measure perpendicular like so. I can see this as, 6 meters and 6 meters, 16 centimeters. You can see that in 3D, but you also have the functionality to measure from point to point, like so, right? And then also you can, snap to vertices, like from here to here, it snaps. If you turn this off, then you can, it's not going to be more accurate, but you can do this too. Anyways, let me quickly get rid of these measurements. But yeah, this is a recent addition to our viewer that is, I believe, great for, quality checks and controls. And also you can have discussions, right? Let's say that we are not happy with the color of these walls, right? I can simply add a comment here and then say, let's change the color of this wall to maybe green or something. I can add a comment, and I will actually quickly share the link to this model in the chat too. Hopefully you'll be able to access it. So let me quickly do that. It's still adding, I'm assuming. So yeah, so the idea is basically you can have conversations in 3D with other team members and then make changes in the host application to your design, depending on those feedback you get from your manager or from the other discipline. Yeah, we also have like features like the explode mode, where you can explode your model. You can change the projection of your camera from perspective to the parallel projection. Also, you have the section box that's built into Speckle, so you can have some sort of like a plan view kind of thing. And yeah, these are some of the features. You can also change the the elevation as well as the azimuth of the sun that's being used, and so on and so forth. Any questions so far?
No, I don't think so that there are any questions. I'm regularly checking the chat as well, so nothing there so far.
All right, perfect. So let's quickly go over some then connectivity aspect. This was the web application where we went over the version tracking functionality as well as the commenting and some viewer behaviors. Now I want to talk a bit about some maybe connectivity aspect of Speckle, where different parties are using different tools and you need to exchange this data with each other, right? Recently, we added a new functionality to our Revit connector, which basically what it does nowadays is it receives the blocks that is coming from other applications as families in Revit, right? Which is really a powerful feature. Let's say that you have your design inside Rhino, right? You want to receive this inside Revit, but you want to receive this as families in Revit, so you have more control over it. Because as we all know, we do not really want to import anything into Revit, right? We much rather recreate it using the Revit's family editing, environment, recreate the same geometry, and then use that instead of importing anything from DWG files to CAD to Rhino files or SketchUp files, right? So what you can do is simply, let's say that I'm going to send these these four chairs and this table. I'm going to select these two. I actually created a simple test project prior to this presentation. So let me quickly refresh. So yeah, here's our project. Now I'm going to create a new model, and let's say this is going to be from Rhino to Revit. And instead of sending everything again, I'm going to select these maybe four chairs just for this quick demo, and also this table. So these are blocks inside Rhino. I'm going to quickly go to selection and click on send. And here it is. Let's now quickly switch back to Revit, get into the same project. I don't know what's going on. There we go. I'm assuming because I'm sharing my screen, it is very, very slow. Yeah. In this case, we're going to receive data that is coming from outside, from Rhino. So I'll select Rhino to Revit, which is the data that we just sent, right? Let me quickly go back, the Receive tab, and click on Receive. which will create these tables, right? And what is happening is basically we had this block instance. This is a block. If I double click on it, you can see this is a block named table 01. If I were to double click on this chair, you can see this is a chair 01, right? Let's now quickly go back to Revit and select the table. This table is now a family, table 01. This chair is again now a family, chair 01. If I were to get into the family environment, I can also change its category here because now it's a native Revit element with everything from the material to the surfaces and so on and so forth, but I can play with it. But what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to replace these boring materials with some, good looking materials within the material editor. So let's see what materials are being used. So I'm assuming this is the wood material right here, right? So I'll go to manage materials and wood is right here. And I'm simply going to replace this with some, I don't know, maybe like oak. And let's select this one. I'm going to replace the material asset with oak and click OK. So now if I were to go to the realistic view, you can see the oak material with its textures and everything is being used. So currently our support is limited to materials when it comes to these workflows. Speckle currently, I'm putting that in quotation marks, does not support textures. When I say textures, I mean this, the texture image material. We are creating material using the shading that is coming from either Rhino, what the host application is. If it's Blender, that's coming from there. If it's SketchUp, we're converting the SketchUp color into a Speckle color and then converting that back into the Revit material shading. So that's just, the gist of it. But you can always, inside the environment that you're comfortable with, like Revit, replace it with the material library you have. Yes. So any questions so far? So the connection we created between Rhino to Revit is not limited to only converting blocks into families. We also support converting, let me quickly go back. So this is, as you can see, a big model where we have a bunch of mass for buildings, right? So we have a built-in functionality called the Speckle Mapper for Rhino. This is currently only available for Rhino and SketchUp. And what it basically allows you to do is quickly convert your CAD models into BIM models with some logic in mind. So what it does is, for instance, you can select this component and then say this is going to become a category of site element inside Revit. So you can quickly assign categories to the geometries you created inside Rhino and receive them in Revit with the correct category assigned. Also, you can convert surfaces like this into native Revit elements like floors and ceilings and walls, right? So these horizontal elements inside this model, they are all tagged as floor element, but you can also tag vertical extrusions and surfaces as walls. So when you receive them, they will become a wall element inside Revit. And also you can replace a block instance with another block within Revit. So you can say, for instance, this tree element will become this tree family that I sent from Revit. That's also possible. We have the tutorials available on our website, speckle.systems. You can check that out there. There's a dedicated tutorial that explains that workflow. But, eventually what you end up with is something like this. That model from from Rhino, convert it into a Revit model, like this one. As you can see, these are native Revit trees. These are in the correct category, site category, topography, and roads, and so on. But also I have these Revit floors, which are native floors, like you can edit their boundary and they will respect them. Yes, I will show a Power BI connector example. And I forgot to mention, there's also, you can convert your edges from Rhino into beams and columns and braces within Revit. So, you can quickly create your structure using Grasshopper and then quickly convert those into native Revit elements with their types assigned and levels and so on and so forth. So as you can see, these surfaces are converted into curtain walls. I also have my families here with their materials and so on assigned. All right. So this was the Rhino and Revit connection. Now let's quickly, but we cannot see that differences in Revit, right? What do you mean by differences, Sinem? Can you explain a bit? Do you mean the version tracking functionality? We can change something in Speckle. We do not allow for changing things in Speckle. Speckle currently only stores data and gives access to receivers. So yeah, this was the Rhino and Revit connection, and we have connections similar to this for SketchUp too, because SketchUp has this huge 3D warehouse library, which is great for finding the furnitures and stuff. If you want access to those elements inside Revit, now you can do that too with Speckle, right? And beautiful thing, these are not imports. So I can create a new model called maybe SketchUp to Revit, right? Select my model and simply send it. It's going to convert and then upload it. It is done. I can view this in the web too. Let me actually quickly refresh. Did I create it in somewhere else? Oh yeah, I'm in the wrong server. Sorry. So I'll quickly say SketchUp to Revit. I have multiple accounts. I sent to the wrong account. So again, it's going to convert, it's going to upload it to the server, and then it's accessible now. If I were to go back, this is the same model that we had in SketchUp, accessible, right? And if I were to go back to Revit now, for instance, let's create a new project. Yes, so there's a question from Stepan Mikulic. I have a question. How should we choose between Rhino Insight, Beam, or Speckle, or there's also Conveyor? So each has its own limitations and advantages. The Speckle's advantage is that you do not have to have Rhino and Revit installed in the same device, right? You can have the Rhino user in a different environment, completely far away from where you are, send your data to web and receive it in Revit. That's how it works. It's not local exchange, right? With Rhino Insight, you need to have Grasshopper knowledge. With Speckle, you don't need to have that. But if you like Grasshopper and if you want to use Grasshopper and also want to use Speckle, that's also possible. We also have all the functionalities that I mentioned here are available as Grasshopper nodes too. So you can create families, you can create direct shapes and so on and so forth. With beam and conveyor ground, again, it's not local. You don't have to have licenses installed in the same device. So that removes that barrier from the users. And also we provide free accounts with no limitations. So let me quickly close the previous projects to increase hopefully the performance of my laptop. Okay, so now let's receive this inside Revit. So I will select the SketchUp model that I created. It's a bit slow. Okay, let's click on receive. And yeah, here we are. And yeah, as you can see, our connection is also not limited only to Rhino. We also support SketchUp, Blender, Unity, Unreal Engine, and so on and so forth. So it's not only from Rhino to Revit, it's also from all these other applications too. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly show you that, this workflow is also available for SketchUp. The same is true. You can convert the SketchUp faces into floors and so on and so forth. So yeah, again, all the resources are on our website, speckle.systems. You can check, we have dedicated tutorials. I also want to quickly go over the Power BI workflow, if that's okay. So let me quickly share.
Sure, go ahead with that as well.
By the way, in the meantime, do you have any questions?
Maybe again a quick question about the coordinates. How does Speckle decides where to receive? Let's say the example you showed with the SketchUp disk. Again, it uses the Revit internal point, base point. Do you have any control of that, or it automatically place it somewhere?
So when it comes to origins, again, it totally depends on the settings. If you want to receive it, use each application, Rhino, SketchUp, etc. They have their own definitions of origin. So we are respecting that and setting that as the reference point inside Speckle. And when you receive it, you can set it again. You can say, this reference point coming from Rhino, use in Revit, use the internal origin as the receive point. Or you can say, this origin will become the survey point in Revit or the project base point and so on. So you have the functionality of receiving and, replacing the origin on receive in Revit.
Okay, and there's another question in the chat. You could maybe easily get it from there.
I can't see any question. Can Speckle handle geometries like AI created Luma AI ones if they're in USD or OBJ format, or Shapetower or P3D.in? In theory, why not? We support point clouds too, as far as I remember. I do not have much information about Luma AI ones. We currently do not support USD, but it's on our roadmap. OBJ format, we do support. Shapediver, I don't know what type of geometry they're using, but since they're also web-based, it shouldn't be that hard to support it. I do not know what P3D.in format is. But yeah, so we have our Weaver is a separate package, and it can be extendable with your own data too. So yeah, it's a 3 based. If you're technical, if it's based on 3GS, So anything that can be viewable inside 3GS, it can also be viewable inside Power Viewer. Any other questions?
I think not. So you could, yeah, you could continue with the Power BI workflow.
All right. So let's quickly go over that. I'm gonna quickly share my screen again. Let's see. Okay, I need to close this. And all right. So I'm gonna close Rhino 2 so it doesn't consume the energy. Let's close SketchUp 2 and also Revit. I'm actually going to quickly go over maybe an example use case, right? So let's quickly open the Revit connector again. And this time I'm going to send to a new model. I will say Revit and then / rooms. So it's going to be under Revit model and stored inside the rooms submodel. And then instead of sending everything, I will send only the category of rooms and click on send. So I want to send only the room elements from Revit. So, if you want, you can do the other way around, where you can send everything from Revit and then filter that data inside Power BI. But, since it's more lightweight, it makes sense to receive it. It makes sense to only send the data that you need in Power BI. So I'll quickly open Power BI. And, our Power BI connection consists of two things. First, we have the data connector that receives the data. And then we also have the 3D viewer visual, which allows you to see your 3D model within Power BI. So I'll simply use the Speckle connection now to connect. And then let's go back to our demo. I'll actually go to speckle.xyz, which is our default front end. And then I will copy this and paste it into here. So what it's doing now is it's fetching the data from the Speckle server, and the fetch data is in Power BI formats, which consists of lists, tables, and records, right? Since the data that is coming from Revit is not in tabular format. When I say tabular, is where you have the rows and the columns. For instance, a wall may contain a parameter, which is in itself a complex data, like a level, for instance. All right, I think I know what's wrong, so I'm going to quickly fix that. So I'll create a new model called rooms. And then I will move this to the rooms. And let's copy this. And let's get data again. So yeah, here it is. I'm going to simply click on load. Right now it's loading the data. It may take a bit, but it shouldn't take this long because I think I'm giving live demo. It is taking way longer than it should. FYI. So yeah, as I said, since the data that is coming from Revit is really complex, right? And we are trying to reflect that within the Power BI's data types. You'll get a lot of records, you'll get a lot of lists and tables. And if you know the Power BI and how to clean up your data, it is really easy. So now we have received the data, and we also have some columns that are auto-generated, and we'll understand why those are generated in a bit. So what I will do is I will import our 3D viewer visual into this dashboard, and then I will add this into the canvas, and here it is. This is the Speckle's 3D viewer visual, and when you select it, it asks for a couple inputs like stream URL, commit object ID, and object ID. So I'll simply select the corresponding inputs that are auto-generated. So these columns are auto-generated because in case you want to use the 3D viewer visual, you don't need to, try to extract those information from the received data. So I'll simply select those 3. And here is my model. So right now we are in Power BI, right? This is not the web application. We are within Power BI. So the beautiful thing is all the data of the rooms are stored inside data key. If I wanted to, I can easily extract some information. So I'll quickly extract a couple information and then try to keep this demo short. So for instance, as you can see, we can see all the speckle types, such as the room, which represents the room object. But we also have some mesh geometry. As you know, mesh is a geometry type, and it represents the volume of the room. So it's visualizable inside the 3D viewer. We also have some base objects, which is speckle type. So I'll select the room object, and I can see all the parameters are listed here, right? I have its area, its name, its height, its number, etc. But also I have another quote-unquote record, which is an object type. That is a type of record. So all the parameters of the room object, all of them are stored inside here, but we made some of them, such as the name, the number, height, more easily accessible in the higher level. So you don't need to get into the parameters to extract those. Right, I have a dedicated tutorial on how to extract parameters from Revit on our YouTube channel at Speckle. So for now, what I will do is I'll simply add a new column. I will say, this one will be, for instance, name, right? From the data column, we're going to extract what? We're going to extract the name key, like so. So when I do that, it will extract all the name keys. As you can see, there are some errors because these objects, they do not have the name key, and that's okay. We can get rid of them in the future. We'll remove those errors. And I will also simply extract what? Also maybe the area. I'm assuming it had the area key. So I will say get the area key too. So yeah, here we go. We also have the area keys stored. So what I can do now is quickly remove the lines, the rows that has errors. So I only have left with the room objects. And I will also quickly check if there are any errors here. And yes, I can see. So I will remove this error from here too. And then lastly, I will change the data type to number so we can get some total areas and so on. So let's load this back into Power BI now. So yeah, what we have done so far is we have extracted the relevant information from the received data, right? You can think of this as a more complex workflow where you may have your own, shared parameter you've added to your project, or maybe you've added some custom project parameter. You can easily extract those as well. We have, as I said, the dedicated tutorials available on our website. So now let's quickly get some visuals, right? I will select this and then say, let's color these by their name. And ta-da. The objects that have the same name are colored the same. So let me quickly add the name input into the tooltip data tool. So when I select an element, I can see its name, right? I can see all the orange ones are stairs, the green ones are corridors, right? Like so. Also, this we are creating an interaction. So I can add maybe like slicers into this dashboard, and then I can say, get some names. So all the names are listed. So I can quickly filter all the corridors in my model, like so. Or maybe all the stairs. They are easily filtered. Same is true for other visuals too. So I can quickly say, get the names and their areas. So we can see the distribution of name by area, but I can quickly filter out those elements in my model. So it is interacting with other visuals too. So this was a quick demo of this workflow. Is there any questions? What are the exploring capacities of the 3D viewer? What do you mean by exploring capacities? Like maybe the file size it can handle? Is that what you're asking? Huh. Okay, yeah. I mean, these are some, easy access tools such as Zoom to Fit and maybe some, views if you have that are coming from Revit. If you have some views, they're also available. So you can quickly switch between the top view and so on. You also have the section box, the tools that are available inside the 3D viewer. Some of them, not all of them, are also available in the 3D visual that is built into Power BI. And this one refreshes the visual. Any other questions? Microsoft Copilot Studio. I do not know what Copilot Studio is. Is it? I know what Copilot is. Isn't it the regular chatbot, or is it something else? The Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio. I mean, it is possible. Yeah, why not? I mean, I haven't really thought about it, but as I said, we had some community members who created their own, AI chatbots that, that replies to the questions you ask about your data. Our data structure is JSON, so you can feed in that data to the AI bot and ask questions about it and extract relevant information if needed. I did not see any automations that were created with the Copilot Studio. How do you compare Trace or add-in to Speckle's Power BI connector? Yeah, first, our connector is open source and we provide free account, as I said. That's one of the main differences. And also, we're not limited to only Revit or IFC. So you can also receive data from Grasshopper, right, which is another great tool to create your own data structures. And all the other data sources like Tekla, Dynamo, SketchUp, and so on and so forth. So as I said, we are creating this ecosystem. It's not only a dedicated solution for A to B workflow. It's a huge connectivity ecosystem. Do you have a connector for IFC to Power BI at the moment? So you can upload your IFC files into Speckle and then receive that data in Power BI. So you do not need a connector, right? As Speckle web application supports IFC uploads. do you have the roadmap published somewhere? No, we do not. And we are aware of this because we get this question a lot. It's on our quote unquote internal roadmap to create a public roadmap. But yeah, it's a bit tricky because Speckle has a huge surface area, right? And there are a lot of things that is involved. But yeah, we just need to find the right tool and make sure that that roadmap is up to date and reflects what we are actually prioritizing and planning.
Okay, thanks. It was very interesting. I think we covered a lot of topics here and a lot of very useful demos showing different and possible workflows. In fact, I believe that the options are near endless here. I don't see a lot of limitations. And you said a couple of times that the accounts are free, there are no limits. And this is one of your biggest advantages. Do you believe that this is somehow gonna change in the future? This is somehow something that you want to keep and to
So
rely
this is
on.
definitely something that's going to stay forever. So we
Okay.
will always have a free account, and it's always going to have whatever functionality it has right now. We may have certain features in the future that are enterprise customer only, but most of the time, the Speckle's business model is not based on free accounts and free servers. As you may know, that especially for big AEC companies, data residency is a big issue. So they cannot upload their designs into a public server that is based in another country. There are certain limitations there, and that's where we meet with our customers and try to provide their services to them and try to deploy service for their either in-house use or for their projects where there are multiple parties involved. So the Speckle's free account and free server will be there as long as Speckle exists.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. As I said, our website, speckle.systems, or you can simply Google Speckle. We have all the resources available there, all the tutorials that I showed you about Revit to Rhino workflow, Rhino to Revit workflow, SketchUp workflow, Power BI workflow. And also we have our YouTube channel where we have tutorials available as a video content there too. And don't forget to also watch the Automate keynote and demos that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Here I will add that we're gonna keep a recording of this session and we're gonna upload it on our YouTube channel, and we're gonna include all these links in the description, so anyone who is interested in any of the topics that we discussed today could really quickly and easily access the information that you refer to.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you. Thank you very much again for your presentation and everything that you shared. I believe that is very helpful and could really change the way we work. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for having me. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.